Hey, yo, what it did, y'all? Let's get right into it. Got a quick little rant for y'all today, just because, well, one, this is taking me multiple takes, but two, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. It's been in my notes for 6 months or more. And it was rekindled by a conversation on stream, and now I'm bringing it here to YouTube in a more curated format because, well, I'm frustrated, you know? I heard Secrets of the Atlas was coming, and I mean, like any dedicated Path of Exile player, you hear of the Atlas, you see imagery of Zana, you get excited. The next era of Path of Exile 1 is coming. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Right? We didn't get that at all. What we got instead was, admittedly, it was not a bad release by any definitions. It's not like it was just dysfunctional and horrible and terrible for the game and unfun, but it didn't make me think, oh yeah, baby, Path of Exile's so back. And I don't even just mean in the recovering from the settlers slump way, but I mean in the Path of Exile is back on top way, like in my heart. That's a stunning thing to say, hear me say, right? Like, whoa, unless you're on my streams. If you're on my streams, you'll know that like this is not a new opinion of mine. But the Path of Exile that I fell in love with is no more in my eyes. And that sucks. And that's what today's video is about. We're going to talk about the Path of Exile that I did love. And we're going to talk about how this game has just slowly but surely whittled away at that identity. Or more importantly, whittled away at my ability to wait for it to return to that game. Let's get into it. All right, we got to go all the way back to 2018 for this, right? I was in college. I was grinding a ton of Diablo at the time in Warframe. Those were the 2 years I played a ton of Diablo 3, Warframe. You're like, Diablo 3? Ugh. Listen, it's what I was into, all right? I played a ton of Diablo 3, and I really liked ladder pushing in that game. Like, I really liked it. That was a ton of fun for me. And my friends, you know, were like, oh, there's this new PoE league coming up, this being Synthesis. You should check out this game. Like, I think you would really like it because I'm a huge nerd. If you didn't know already, because you're new to this channel, go look through my channel after this video and see just how much of a nerd I am. Between builds and yap topics about the game, I love getting into the games that I get into and getting really, really deep into them. And I mean, Path of Exile at the time I was introduced to it was perfect for that experience. Perfect, beyond perfect for it, right? We're talking a game with insane build diversity. There's tons of skills, right? Tons of ways to scale them. At the time of this recording, there's over 300 gems or some shit like that. There's, 19 ascendancies, 38 if you include the Freesia ascendancies, right? There's so many unique, there's so much to build in this game, and there always has been. Oh, and the evolving endgame where they keep layering on new systems on top of the old systems to make the endgame fresh and oh my god, it was a dream come true. A game that I could really, really put the tism to use in and just go above and beyond in my desire to get deep into a game, right? So that's the PoE that I fell in love with. And I fell in love for a long, long time. In fact, from Synthesis League all the way up until Sentinel League. That remained true. I was all in, baby. So notice that I said up until Sentinel League. And Sentinel League was not the worst league ever, and it just immediately made me jump off the wagon. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. So let's go back a couple of leagues, right? Let's talk about, there are 2 different angles we need to talk about this from. We'll start by talking about this from the builds angle, and then we're going to go to the gameplay angle, and then we're going to come back together. So starting from builds, let's go back to Expedition League. If you weren't playing at the time, bless your soul, honestly. But Expedition League, for those of us who are around, heralded this fat nerf patch. And now you might be thinking, he's just whining about the nerfs. No, actually, I was excited as hell about the nerfs. I felt that the game really needed this. I felt like the ceiling of the game had gotten well beyond the tuning of the actual content in the game, and still poses to be a problem to this day with some of the stuff. I have this separate complaint of a different type for a different type of video, but like the tuning was getting way out of control, and it was time to bring things down a little bit and get a little bit more control over like number scaling so you can do more utility things, right? That was the whole idea. And it worked out. It made the game more threatening, and it gave me new problems to solve build-wise. While everybody else looked at that patch and saw themselves getting weaker, I saw myself being forced to solve problems in a new way again. And that's fine enough for me, as long as I think the problems are solvable. And I did think they were solvable. I found solutions, and that was really fun for me. But what also happened in that same era, right, would be that is the last patch for a long time that featured a meaningful swath of changes to skills in the game, to things about builds in the game. And going forward from that time period, because that was, we got the one skill gem per ascendancy thing, plus the, like, that big that was about it. So now we go forward a little bit. And I can only really describe how I feel about the ensuing couple of years of gameplay between being tapped into the top end of the scene and also just, like the way that the game was being handled at the time, is that they weren't making changes in the build department anymore. Builds that were overperforming would get nerfed in a way that either meant that they were barely nerfed or still didn't even come close to knock you out of the spotlight, which meant that everybody was talking about it and playing it, which meant that the crafting meta never changed. The builds that you talk about for racing never changed. Like, it was just all the same shit. Or the other side of, like, the builds not changing like that is like, fuck, man, I'm trying to get some ideas for other builds, but everybody's playing the same build that they played last league and the league before that and the league before that. Oh my God. What am I supposed to do? And that went on till Sentinel League. Not that Sentinel League stopped this drought, but it was just that my frustration with this kind of, like, lingered. With the exception of Metamorph, or not Metamorph, Arcnem. Sorry, that was Metamorph 2. Arcnem. And it was only because Bows had gotten such a fat buff, even though I had already been playing them, that I was like, fuck it. I gotta see what this buff is like. And there was new content in the game, which we'll talk about my opinions on content later, right? But, like, the overarching, like, build economy in the game remained pretty stagnant following this point as well. And so, when we reach a point where things in the game feel awful, such as, like, Sentinel, I'm not inclined to stick around because there's just no innovation on that front. There's nothing for me to want to try and want to see through. And then you can go even further with this example to the next time they then just, like, innovated on the game, right? In the build perspective would be Affliction League. Affliction League, they gave us Transfigured Gems, and I was super excited to play, like, with the new Transfigured Gems. In fact, I league started that season Blight of Contagion, which, if you haven't seen it, you can go look at my Blight of Contagion character from either then or this season when I played in SSF on my reroll into SSF, and I was very excited to play it, except for the part where the skill was so atrociously undertuned for how ridiculously overtuned the end game was in the game at the time, because Affliction was ridiculous. And what does that mean? Back to the same shit, right? Because a philosophy shift happened in Expedition, where they were no longer willing to rip the scaffolding from below skills. Unless you're Hex Blast or Splitting Steel, don't worry, I have not forgotten what they did to our boys this patch, right? Outside of a selective handful, they were never really willing to just, like, pull the scaffolding from beneath and make the skill, like, not worth playing in the public eye, which meant that you were just kind of praying that the other skills were pushed somewhat adjacent to it. But then if you're not someone willing to create your own build, you probably don't have information to really work off of to actually play things besides the same shit you've been playing for years. And I hate that for this game. The game with build diversity and build options touted heavily as one of its selling points, reduced to a piece of shit in that regard. Really hurt, really sucked. With the exception, and again, another exception to this would be Crucible League, when we had the weapon mods, and you're going to hear some thoughts on that and my thoughts on the rune system in the next part of this video when we talk about the gameplay. Just know that once upon a time, builds used to actually change. You used to not boot up the patch notes and think, well, it's another DD season, because it was actually possible that DD took a real nerf. Like, you used to take nerfs that didn't completely disable. Like, sometimes they would hit you with the triple special, the triple GGG combo, but, like, a lot of the time it was just you saw big enough numerical nerfs, you were like, damn, all right, time for me to go look for something else. And something else got buffed real nice. Oh baby, I'm so excited. Kind of like how Melee did in last season. My bad. I was like, what season was it? Yeah, last season. The changes to Melee last season were fucking insane. Giving them the quality of life that they've always wanted, kind of akin to what they did to minions back in Blight. Like, that makes the game feel fantastic. But that's only on the build side of things. let's go to the other side of the fence, because I think the other side of the fence is really where it started to like hit me the most. So the thing about the difference here between build and gameplay innovation problems is that lack of build innovation problems are technically self-inflicted problems. At any point in time, and I did it many a time, I can force myself to just play something that's less popular or less known or less researched or whatever in order to create the research on said build or said topic so that I can use it to fortify future endeavors. That's a self-inflicted thing that was more so just bothered by the fact that GGG was not like acting in a way to enable that. But I can't, there's no self way to get around the fact that the gameplay itself wasn't innovating anymore. And so now we must go back in time again. This time, it's Arcanum. But again, we should remember where I came from, right? I mentioned that I started in the Synthesis League. That league did not go core. But starting at Legion onwards for quite a while, with the exception of Ultimatum, league mechanics went core. Harvest had a one league off hiatus, but league mechanics went core. They would develop these really innovative ways to play the game Path of Exile, and then they would stay in the game, and they would add their power creep to the ecosystem. And so you would change what power creep you're hunting, or what power creep you're what you're prioritizing in the build economy. You would change around that, this, that, and the third, blah 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 blah. Right? And so I said Arcanum, but I just remembered that Expedition would be a better starting point, because Expedition, something to take note, is that Ultimatum and Expedition are both mechanics that did not actually introduce character enabling power to them. They were just different types of gameplay. Ultimatum did not go core because it was a completely useless mechanic at the time until it then absorbed the purpose of Metamorph in its return. Expedition, on the other hand, never really had a purpose outside of its insane regular currency generation. And generally engaging like gameplay loop itself, like actually doing the mechanic is just kind of fun. But like as a like mechanic and how it contributed to the game's ecosystem didn't really do anything. And so a lot more of the like gameplay changes from that league came from the massive build reworking. So now we need to go forward a league, right, into Scourge, where things changed, but more on the build side and less on the gameplay side, because that mechanic did not go core, except for Scourge replacing Beyond 2 or 3 seasons later. Now we get to Siege of the Atlas. This is one of the only major endgame changes in the past 4 years. Siege of the Atlas brought us the Exarch Eater Atlas that we're familiar with today. And then Settlers League would then bring us innovation to and the Atlas Strip was brought in Siege of the Atlas, and then we would get the Uber Keystones in Sentinel League. And that would be like the scaffolding and framework for the NEM of PoE today, even, right? That is January of 2022. The Arc Nemesis mechanic itself did not go core, except for the modifiers that came out of it, replaced the regular Nemesis modifiers to the ire of players for the next three leagues, right? But I say we have to go all the way back to Sentinel, because now we're at the point in time where nothing from the patch goes forward. Not only from a build perspective, but from a gameplay perspective. The Sentinel League mechanic didn't come forward for like a year or more. It was just gone from the game. Nothing about it. And when it came back, it lost the interesting part, where you would like choose and build the Sentinels that you want to make your mechanics juicier. Instead, you like sometimes see a random Sentinel in your map and just fucking bang your desk when you see that it's an Apex Sentinel. Whoop-de-whoop. Okay, so that didn't really change. What about Calandra League? You know, surely the league with like, you know, the reflected jewelry and whatnot changed something. No, that gameplay didn't go core. That mechanic also didn't go core for another couple of leagues. Reflective Mist came back in Necropolis, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it was Necropolis. Okay, so nothing changed then. What about Sanctum? Actually, in Sanctum League itself, after Sanctum League itself, nothing changed. It then came back and restored the loop in like the content itself in Toda, but it was missing like a really important part of, you know, what it did, which was at the time Sanctified Relics, which admittedly was because they were soulbound, and that was a terrible system, but whatever, right? But like that was gone for League and then came back. God bless. I probably would not have really stuck with the game if it didn't come back. I'm just real. I really needed my Sanctum in my life. Y'all know what it is. Crucible. Terrible gameplay loop. Thank God it didn't go core, but it didn't go core. So we're still playing the same game again. The trend I'm pointing out here is that many, many years of League mechanics have just been slapped on top of the base game. And a conversation topic that would always come up is that the base game of PoE is so damn good. The base game of PoE is so damn good. When does the base game of PoE get better? Right? When does something get added and I go, oh my God, not only is the base game good, but the league is good and it's going core and it's going to add to the game. And instead, we kept getting admittedly needed improvements to betrayal and ritual and all this stuff. But where's the new? Toda, really cool mechanic, didn't go core. Affliction, pretty cool mechanic. Not my cup of tea personally, but I know people really liked it. Fucking a shell of what it once was. Necropolis, I love that mechanic. Too bad it didn't go core as a gameplay thing. It's just gone. It is what it is. We got the scarab changes at least that league, but like, where are the landscape changing changes of the game? And that's my problem, is that here we are after Secrets of the Atlas, where I still don't feel like the gameplay has changed. We got given an Of the Atlas expansion, invoking the imagery of Zana as the originator. And oh my God, that's why she left us and all that stuff, right? And they just didn't give us content. There's nothing to sink my teeth into. Memory threads were cool. Not really teeth sinking material though. The new bosses, they do nothing. The mini bosses for them that are literally just old bosses. Ew. Where the fuck is the innovation? Where is the layering that made Path of Exile Path of Exile? Because they can't keep just coasting on being we're GGG and we made Path of Exile forever. At least in terms of Path of Exile 1, right? Something's got to give. Either Path of Exile 1 needs to return to form, or Path of Exile 2 needs to get its head out of test, or they're going to get caught up to by their competition at some point. And it won't be Diablo because, again, Diablo is kind of going through the same shit where I don't know if they know how to fuck to make their game like that hit that next level. But I do know it's why I've been enjoying Torchlight so much. Because in this past year, where GGG's been fucking around, Torchlight's been growing. And that's the thing that's been really disturbing. I said that, Path of Exile was no longer that game for me. It's because Torchlight took that role. Torchlight is now a game that is growing. It's innovating on itself. It's improving its experience. The base endgame experience is the same, but they're adding mechanics that matter. They're sending things core. They're figuring out the details of their build system. They're changing the way builds work season by season. They're adding new power creep systems to the game season by season. They're innovating season by season. Where is my innovation at, GGG? I want it back. Because I don't want to be gone forever. I want to be a PoE player forever. Or at least until the wheels fall off, right? But like, I'm feeling the carriage like wobbling and whatnot, and it's not a safe ride. I got motion sickness. I would like things to go back to being innovative. And I know that the reality is that nothing is going to change until PoE 2 is in a state that is no longer in dire need of nurturing. And I might even just have to cope with the fact that, maybe PoE 2 will get that innovation that PoE 1 should have been getting all of these years once they stop playing fucking Operation with the broken body that is Path of Exile 2. But it sucks, man. I'm tired of thinking. I'm tired of having to make excuses for them. I'm tired of having to pretend to have my business hat on when I talk about these things. I'm a goddamn consumer. And I spent a lot of money on that game because it was the game that inspired you to keep pushing. It was the game that inspired you with their talk and whatnot about how the game should work. and how the game should grow, that it is a game that they'll be committed to keeping fantastic forever, or as long as they can. And instead, I'm sitting here with two corpses of games at the moment. One of them closer to resuscitation than the other. And it sucks. And that's everything for me, you know? I can keep going forever. The thoughts on this topic are endless. It's been on my mind forever at this point. It's been driving me nuts. But I needed to get it out there because I don't know what this next year of content looks like. It's a scary thought, you know? I don't know. I remember thinking this when the Settlers drought happened. Like, I don't know where we were headed at that point. And I'm glad that it led us to a league coming out. But now I don't know where we're headed for a different reason. It's just because, like, shit, I don't know what game I'm going to find the most enjoyable, like, in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, 6 months' time anymore. Which is a crazy thought. And as such, I have no idea what's going to happen with the channel. We're going to figure it out. But I wanted to put it out there, not to like sow doubt in your minds as like, oh my God, he might be abandoning us, but more so just because like, I don't think I'm alone in this feeling about where the Path of Exile games have gone. And I wanted to put it out there so that, you know, the conversation may stir. It may not. I don't really care. I just needed to get it off of me and get back to like, you know, talking at the camera again because I love doing this. I love talking to y'all. I love sharing my thoughts, and I will continue to do that no matter what game I end up covering in the future. So don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Just, you know, maybe a slightly different game here or there. Who knows? Um. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Tuning in. This is not a stream. However, if you do want to tune into the stream, link in the description. You can also check out the Discord. I stream in the evening/nighttime period on nights that I don't work, which currently is Monday, Wednesday. So like not those nights, but well, you know, that's kind of fluid. It's not like a super hard schedule or anything. We just be chilling, vibing, hanging out, yapping, playing the game, all that good stuff. Come check it out. It's good vibes. Come hang on the Discord. Come be a part of the daily Wordle shenanigans that someone started in the Discord. All that good stuff. Anywho, let me know your thoughts on where Path of Exile is headed. And this is not, by the way, I know no one's going to hear this, but like, this is not a video to shit on GGG. Like, if I look through the comments and I see just GGG hate comments, I'm probably deleting your comment because this is not about shitting on GGG. This is about giving like meaningful feedback about the way that I feel that the past few years of the game has gone and the pain that it's put me through. Not a place to like shit on GGG because they're a terrible company, because they're not. If they were that terrible of a company, we wouldn't have cared this long. So keep it real in my comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.